Amazon FBA is changing, but e-commerce is growing like crazy. In 2019, only about 12% of all sales happened online. 2020, that jumped up to 16%. And 50% of all e-commerce sales happen on Amazon. So there still is a huge opportunity, but again, Amazon FBA is changing, it's getting harder. And in this video, we'll share with you how much money you need to start your Amazon business, how you can do it even if you live in a different country than the United States. And at the end of this video, and this is the most important part, we're going to share with you the 3 things that we wish we would have known when we first started our own e-commerce businesses. And I've been doing e-commerce for over 8 years, Amazon for over 6 years. Andres has been he hasn't even started his Amazon business yet. So we have 2 very different perspectives here. So smash the like button, because I was walking around Barcelona. Andres just saw me with my girlfriend walking around, and he sent me a message on Instagram because he's seen my YouTube channel before and said, hey, let's hang out. And now we're doing this video instead of spending our time out on the beach. And if you're out there watching this video and you want to come on this channel and talk about your business, I have a Google form down below. Fill out the form, leave a comment, and I'd love to talk about you and your passion product on this channel, whether you're a student in the course or just a viewer of this channel. But let's get into Andres' story on how he started his business and how he was able to raise over $10,000 using Kickstarter. So first off, tell us about your product and how you got started with your e-commerce business.
Yeah, sure. So my product is actually a premium dry bag with these inside bags. And I got started because I was actually in debates of learning Kickstarter or Amazon. And I thought, okay, Kickstarter could be a way where I can raise a bit of capital, which I can then invest into products and start selling them online.
And this is a huge point. You don't need a ton of money to start your business. What you can do is you can validate the idea by starting it as a Kickstarter first. And I raised over $15,000 for my idea before I did my first production run. I have a student that raised over $100,000. He didn't spend a dime on his product. He raised $100,000 and was able to start from scratch just with the pre-sales he made from Indiegogo. And I know another thing for you, when you first started, it wasn't just a premium dry bag. It was also used for kettlebells. It had a cool, unique element to it.
One of the ways you can learn Kickstarter without losing too much money is you look at a project that's doing well, already has thousands or hundreds of thousands of backers, and you basically improve that product a bit, because then you already know that there's a market out there for that. And if you improve it, why wouldn't you get a similar amount of backers? So that was the idea.
And that's another key thing here is at this point, you can't just sell the same generic products as everyone else. At a minimum, you should try to find a product and try to find some way to improve it. Now, the more unique of a product you can sell, the better you're going to do. And another thing is, this is a product that you kind of designed for you in some ways, in the sense that you are the target demographic.
Yes.
Which is another thing that I think is very helpful and that's why I talk about on this channel, is creating a product that you're passionate about. And we'll talk later about another product that you're going to be coming out with soon that is even more of a passion product. But for everyone at home, let's talk about the process, because you had this idea for this product. The next step was really reaching out to manufacturers and getting some samples. And how much money did you spend on samples?
Around $200 on product samples or prototypes that I didn't end up using.
Okay.
And then after a few weeks, I found a manufacturer where I was really happy with how the product looked. I have had them send a few prototypes over in different sizes, and then after testing that, I just chose the one that suited the project best.
And was it hard interacting? I assume Alibaba.com, was it hard interacting with these manufacturers, or?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest things that you should keep in mind is, first off, there's definitely going to be a conversational barrier or a language barrier, and also everything takes 10 times longer than you think.
And one thing I will say is my experience has been somewhat different. A lot of the conversations I've had, they've gone relatively good, but it depends on the manufacturers that you find. And another thing I'll point out is you were able to get these prototypes sent to, somewhere in Europe, right? So it's not no matter where you are in Europe and where you are in the world, these manufacturers will be able to send products to you.
Yeah, actually, the final prototype, I was in South Africa at the time. So yeah, it was Africa, and they delivered, and yeah, it was all good. So
you found a prototype that you liked, and then the next step is to launch on Kickstarter. And a lot of people out there are worried about I don't know how to make a Kickstarter video. I don't want to spend a lot of money. How much money did it cost you to create your Kickstarter video?
cost me nothing. I bought a cheap $10 tripod and at the market, but that was it. I was quite lucky because I had a background in video editing as well. So I made some ads for a company before. And I also worked for a video production company for a little bit because it was owned by my friend and I just helped out a lot. So I knew how to set up a camera, but don't imagine me being, Steven Spielberg. I'm not like focused on video enough to have a compelling video that will just sell products because of the, the quality or the production value. It's more like you can do it with an iPhone nowadays.
Yeah, and so that's the point, is that you can do this yourself. It doesn't need to be something over the top. And same thing I know with your photos. You just took photos yourself of the product, and with that, you were able to raise over $10,000 on Kickstarter. So after you raised that money, what was the next step?
Yeah, so actually the campaign wasn't even over. I wanted to give my backers kind of a gift. It's not a gift at all, but it was, I wanted to make sure that they get the products quickly, because the main problem with Kickstarter campaigns is the campaign ends and it takes, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months for the backers to get the actual pledges or the products that they pledge for. And I just didn't want that to happen. At that point, I already knew that everything takes 10 times longer than I initially thought on Alibaba. So around halfway through the campaign, I already saw that this is going to work and I'm going to raise more than enough capital. So I put in an order for about 1.5 times the products that I raised enough money for at the time. So to do that, I used my savings. And yeah, it's basically something yet that you have to decide if you want to, make the whole process around a month quicker or not. But in my case, it was a completely doable option and I just went for it.
And I know that about 80% of the backers were in North America and you were based in Europe at the time. And so how did you get the products from the manufacturer to these American and Canadian backers?
Yeah, so I actually messaged them and I said, okay, can you actually send the products to the US?
You messaged the manufacturer?
Yes.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, they said yes. And I was like, okay, what's the cost though, right? And they gave me a really high price. And then I basically had to tell them, can you give me 3 estimates? A very fast shipping option, much slower, like 2-3 weeks shipping option, and very slow, like a month or 2 months shipping option. And they gave me the prices, and based on that, I decided that the middle one, so the one that took around 2-3 weeks, was perfect. It was still doable. I didn't lose money on the product.
And how much was that to ship from China to North America?
It depended on the
location.
The location as well, but around $30-$35.
And the next step for you was to start a Shopify site. How did you go about doing that?
I knew that I wanted to build a brand and I wanted to get good at it. I wanted to understand how building a good brand can raise the value of a product. And I wanted to do that through good ads because I had some experience with that, and social media content. So to me, it seemed like I can differentiate more or build more of a brand through a Shopify store. That's why I chose that instead of Amazon, but I was seriously considering it. And well, you'll find out soon. I'm actually in the process of starting Amazon in the US soon.
And so then the products, because all your products are made in China, and I think I remember you had them shipped over to a 3PL, which is a third-party logistics company. And you want to talk about what the 3PL does and the issues you had with them?
Sure. Basically, they do everything from picking the product up from the shelf or the pallet, and they package it and they ship it. Yeah. So you pay separately for these things. It's a great experience because I'm a digital nomad travel permanently. And it's great. I wouldn't be able to go into the warehouse and send packages off. So they take care of everything. It's relatively cheap. Hungary is one of the more affordable countries in Central Europe. And the location is great because it's close to Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Southern Europe. So it made sense. I could understand the contracts and agreements as well. But what I didn't like about it is that the cost structure I thought would be much more predictable. And that's not the case. So they send invoices about 2 weeks after the actual orders happen. And sometimes you face things that you didn't expect at all. So for example, there's a pandemic surplus on certain deliveries. So let's say you're shipping to Italy. It really makes a difference if you're shipping that to a big city or the countryside. And sometimes they put these extra charges on, and it's a learning curve, and you have to build a good relationship with them as well in order to get quick replies. Just feedback on what's going on, and if there's a problem, then they can help you with that.
So the key point is, even if you're in Europe, you can still send all your products from China to one of these warehouses and they'll handle it for you. On top of that, even if you're traveling around the world like Andrish has been doing, they'll still handle all the fulfillment for your products. Now, the next step for you is you're thinking about launching on the American Amazon. And the cool thing is you can do, a lot of people are nervous at home, like, oh, but I'm in Europe, I can't sell on American Amazon. You can, and you're in the process of doing that. What have been the steps that you've taken so far to do that?
So first off, I had the Shopify store in the EU, and that was working great. And based on the Kickstarter data, I saw that a large amount of my audience was from North America. So I was always thinking, okay, that could be the next market to target, because in Europe now it's October, things are getting cold, and it's you could say it's a seasonal product. You don't want to be in the water all the time in the winter. But I thought that in North America, there's several places where it's always sunny or warm. For example, California, and I imagine Florida. I might be wrong. So I thought that could be an almost all-around product. And that's why I sent a big bulk order there. And I thought that the winning formula in the EU, which I spent thousands on to figure out the right ad at the right placement with the right text, I could just replicate that and launch it in the States and things will be great. And I got the quick realization that the US is a completely different beast on its own. And the ads, I did sell a few, but unprofitably. So I was like, okay, let's take a moment. Let's figure out the next step. Is it figuring out new kinds of ads, maybe more specialized to the States? Is it looking into other, marketing channels, for example, TikTok ads, Snapchat ads, Google ads? Short story there is, as a European business, it's basically impossible to start advertising on these platforms in the States and getting the right kind of invoices that you can account for. The main problem is, if we look at the demographic I have in the EU, I found out that to Italy, which is my number one country, it costs 1/10 of the price to drive traffic than it does in the States, which is absolutely crazy. So if I can figure out that traffic problem, I think everything will be good again, because the product is fine, the reviews are great, everyone's happy. It's just people need to see the product. And that's why Amazon seems like a great option for me, is there's millions and millions of people constantly on the website. So if they see the product, I'm good. It's just getting to the right amount of people.
So what are the steps to getting onto Amazon then? Like, what's the first step for you?
In a warehouse in the States, in Texas actually, with a company called ShipBob, I already have quite a few products, so hundreds of them. And what I'm thinking is sending around 50 just to test the waters to an Amazon warehouse in the States. And yes, I'll need an account first with Amazon. And there's probably going to be a lot of paperwork. I'm not sure.
It's never fun with Amazon, but it's easier than you would think, for sure. Like, there's always hiccups that could happen, but yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and the way I see it, I did some calculations, and it seems like even if I lower the price, because I won't be able to craft that message, that story around my product, as well as if it's on my own website with videos or coming through social media, I'll be one of those dry bags on Amazon. But still, if there's so many people coming and I have to, instead of having to spend $20 on, getting one customer, I can spend, half of that with PPC, then, the numbers seem to show that it's a better option.
So let's talk about, what are the 3 things you wish you would have known before you started this process for everyone at home, what they can learn. And I think the first thing we talked about was, make sure you pick the right product. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So data-driven decisions. You could consider my decision with this product data-driven, because I based it on an already popular product and I improved it. So that was great. But, making decisions and based on your emotions or what you feel is usually scary, unless it's a passion product, I guess, because then you probably know a few, let's say, Instagram pages which have, hundreds of thousands of followers. And if that is true, and you personally would buy that product, that's, probably a good starting point. I would always do a bit of research, data-driven research, but, yeah, look at the numbers more.
Well, and to me, you want both. You want the numbers, the data, the logic, but you also want the emotions, because I see a lot of people that start businesses purely based on the numbers, and you're like, this makes perfect sense, but they hate it. And that was my first business. I started a dance clothing business that the numbers made sense, but it was draining for me to work on it. So when you can marry those two, it works out really well. And it's important to note that there's different ways to get data. You can use other successful products and just improve them. Another thing, and I'll put a link to it down below, is I use Helium-10. I have a product research video that I'll put up here showing you how to use tools like Helium-10 and a bunch of other ones, and how you can basically figure out exactly what people are searching for on Amazon and make products like those. And my favorite type of product to make is figure out what people are searching for on Amazon and see where no product yet exists. And I've talked about this in other videos. I have a guy that I partnered with, and I could see from the data that people were searching for bartending flashcards, cocktail recipe cards, like all these things people were searching for on Amazon, but there was no product yet. And I'm like, hey, let's make that product. And that business, he did over $50,000 in his first month selling on Amazon. So do you use the data? I think it also helps if you can have a little bit of passion for it as well, because you understood your market, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's also important because after a while, you're gonna wanna make content for that product. Yeah. And if you understand the niche, you know which influencers to reach out to, what specific kind of shots you want, even if you can't do it yourself, you know, oh, I want a dome shower, you know, have the photo is underwater and the other one is above. And yeah, it just helps. It just makes the whole process easier, less figuring out later.
And this is an important point too on how Amazon has changed, because it used to be you could just put a product on Amazon and you would make a ton of money and all that kind of stuff. But nowadays, you really need to create a brand, which means you need to have a social media for it. It means you need to be reaching out to influencers. And it takes a little bit more work, but it allows you to do something. It allows you to drive traffic to your Amazon listing, to your Shopify store. And I think it makes it a lot easier if you understand the product, understand the customers.
A quick hack to get really amazing content for free. Something that I did is I was thinking, okay, if I could choose any director in the world, who would I have my ads made by? And it's this guy called Sam Kolder. He's a famous YouTube videographer. I realized, okay, I'm never going to get him. But he launched this course, and the course was amazing. And it cost quite a lot of money to enroll, meaning that people who enrolled were very dedicated to mastering their craft, getting better, working on projects. And they had an Instagram page. And basically, I just looked at the Instagram page and saw that they're running contests every month. So I started reaching out to the winners of these internal contests. And what I found is that pretty much all of them were up for making content for me in exchange for free products, because they just start building their portfolio. And if you give them a lot of creative freedom, then, you know, it's great for them. They're not constrained by all these requirements that bigger brands would give. You can also be sending them free products for a longer amount of time, doing cross collaborations. So it just works out for everyone, and it's free content, and it's content that I would never be able to get anywhere else. It's really high quality.
The next thing you wish you would have known earlier on is that it takes longer than you would think, this entire process. You want to talk about that?
First off, I've been doing this company for around maybe 6 months, and it feels like an eternity. And I'm constantly frustrated of, oh, why am I not making more money? Because I feel like a lot of YouTube videos give this false perception that it's going to happen overnight. Yeah. And it's not. And I was actually talking to a friend who is selling on Amazon, and he was the one telling me, like, man, this is going to take years. Like, yeah. What are you talking about? Like, it's not realistic for everyone to build multi-million-dollar business in a few weeks. It's going to take years or at least months. And it's very true, and it's one step at a time, but it takes a lot longer than we hope for.
And every once in a while, I see these people on YouTube that they do get lucky. They strike gold right away, but that's not the norm. And I'm at the point now where I've been doing this for long enough that if I do launch a product, it's a higher likelihood that it will do well, but that's because years and years of like crafting these skills. So that's a very important point. There was a point in time where it was much more common, where if someone were to launch a product, it would be like striking gold almost all the time. That's another way that Amazon has kind of changed. You know, it takes work, it takes time. And we even mentioned earlier that if you order a product with a manufacturer, they may say, oh, it'll be ready in 2 weeks. And that could be 6 weeks, 8 weeks later. And then shipping as well. Like we talked about this, they'll say, oh, it's only going to take 2 weeks to get from the manufacturer to you. It could take 2 months sometimes. So just expect everything's going to take longer.
A very specific example of that is, so I ordered a bulk order of these water bottles, and just today I was talking to the manufacturer. I asked them to check up on the order because it's delayed for a while, and she said, oh yeah, well, it's expected to arrive on the 18th. Today is the 5th, so in roughly 2 weeks. And I refreshed my email, and 30 minutes later, I saw from my fulfillment partners that the bulk order has arrived. So they don't necessarily always know what's going on in the background. So, there could be definitely this one was very lucky that I got them earlier than expected, but you might, get them a month or two later.
And you got to keep in mind, with us smaller sellers, we're probably not the priority of these manufacturers. They're working with people that are doing $1 million production run, and so they're not always going to be paying attention. And the third thing you wish you would have known earlier on is that Shopify kind of sucks.
I think Shopify works well if the infrastructure is right or if the conditions are right. But currently with iOS 14, tracking on your campaign is really messed up. So you can't really see how many people, add to cart or make a purchase. And you just don't want to make decisions based on data that isn't accurate. So that's a huge thing. And just the whole landscape is changing in general. So now you're much more relying on different ad creatives, while until now it was much more about the different audiences. So things are changing, and to find the right formula, it really takes usually thousands of dollars to figure it out until it clicks. And I think a lot of young entrepreneurs don't have that kind of money to experiment with.
And there are pros and cons with Shopify versus Amazon. Obviously the huge pros with Shopify is you own the website, you have control, it's very easy to drive external traffic to your site. But the cons with Shopify is you need to get people to come to your site, you need to get people to convince to actually buy a product from your site, as opposed to Amazon has 147 million Prime customers in the United States. That's like a lot of people that are looking to buy your products, and Amazon also has built-in trust. And my number one tip, if you're looking to start an e-commerce store, is you're not the first one to ever start an e-commerce store. Learn from other people that have been successful and have made mistakes. And I created an entire playlist of real stories of real Amazon sellers that you can get by clicking right here. I interviewed a bunch of different people on different levels of success on exactly what they did right and what mistakes they made. So click on that playlist, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.